Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Wednesday podcast for the SC Hub for NRL. My name is Munster Mash, also known as Rob. And joining me tonight, I've got Matt from the Pod and Realm. How's it going, guys?
Pretty good. Rob. Happy to be here.
Very well.
Yeah, I apologise in advance if I'm a little bit croaky. I'm a little bit under the weather, but Supercoach never rests, so we got to dive into it. First of all, I guess we've heard from you, Realm. Obviously, you're a bit of a regular here on the Wednesday pod. But Matt, tell us a bit about your Supercoach history and tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I've been playing Supercoach for about 10 years. I've got a background in wagering, so I work in the betting industry, so very analytical numbers, whatnot. And I try to use that a bit to advantage playing Supercoach, thinking about player infos and that sort of thing that I might do in my work every day. I've had two back-to-back top 500s, 307th last year. It's my best finish, so I was chuffed with that.
Very nice.
Shout out to Talatau Kula.
What rank were you before round 26?
I was about 1,100.
Yeah, Jesus.
So jumped 800 spots, won all the cash comps. I was the last two rounds I probably jumped from sort of 1900th, I think. So 800 spots each week. It just shows you how volatile those ends of seasons. I think we're going to see it again this year. Coaches this is the template now to do it. You know, we've seen in the NFL for a while, and as most things migrate from America over to Australia, and that's the latest, and it's obviously a huge impact on Supercoach. But yeah, it's I was more just lucky last year, to be honest. At the end of the year, I was lucky. I didn't have that many trades left, but I dodged a lot of resting, so that was good. And I host a podcast called the Pod, which drops on early Tuesday mornings now. We've moved just to try and avoid the logjam on Wednesday mornings. So we had some really good listenership this week, and we're a bit offbeat. We don't take it too seriously, even though we do like to get pretty analytical. But I do it with my two brothers mainly, so it's fairly like we just like getting stuck into each other and entertaining ourselves. So
yeah, I've got a bone to pick with one of your brothers.
Yeah,
we talked about it before the show. I had a pretty good first round, and the one guy who beat me in basically all my comps was your brother Dom in one of the Pod boys. So yeah, not happy with him.
No, and he's only sort of really taken Supercoach seriously the last couple of years. He's always kind of been the butt of a lot of jokes, but he put in a ton of work in pre-season, and yeah, he's very up and about. So
yeah, I did the center wing pod with him, like the Supercoach Hub podcast when we focused on center wings, and yeah, it was a really good chat. But he did have some kind of out there ideas, and I remember talking to Myth, who was also on the podcast on the show, and we're like, God, he's either going to kill it first round or he's going to be like 100K.
Yeah,
and yeah, paid off for him.
Yeah, he likes to think about it a bit about differently. He's very big into ownership and trying to pod and anti-pod popular and unpopular selections. So. Yeah, I mean, it's just so crucial if you want a shot of it. I mean, you obviously don't need a huge first round to have that high rank at end of year, but I think like to have actual shot at it, it is important to start fast and get your team set up quickly, because once you're ahead of the pack, you can make a lot of decisions with more clarity and not having to worry so much about, is this gonna make my rank climb this decision, or if you can stack the odds in your favor a bit more, I think, and I'm a little bit jealous of his score, but not feeling discouraged one little bit.
All right, I guess that leads us into the next part. How did you guys go for the week? Realm, you've hinted at it. I know you did pretty well this week. So
yeah, I had a good first round. I went pretty poddish in some areas. Like I ended on 1,031, which got my rank about, I think it was like 3.8K or 3.4K, something like that. So yeah, I went pretty good. I had my front row locked down with Haas and Terrell May. I had Nanai as my pod second rower as well, so that kind of paid off. Then I went really cheap in 5'8" with Flano and Strange, and I played Flano, so I got his try, which was almost a 60 score. And then I took the punt on Lomax over Tuivasa-Sheck, and that paid off as well, round one. So yeah, the only downside really to my side was the second row mids and my captaincy on Ponga, but all in all, I can't really complain.
Yeah, I had the captaincy on Ponga as well, and I ended up with an 865, so I'm about 50K. But I can only go upwards from here, I'm hopeful. What about yourself?
I dropped to 930. Yeah, I dropped to 939, which puts me just inside the top 20k. I was looking really, really good on Saturday, so I anti-potted Ponga and Cleary in favour of Drinkwater and Mitch Moses. So I had Drinkwater and Brown play Saturday afternoon, and I thought if I can really get Parramatta pumping Canterbury, then I'm in a good spot for Drinkwater captain Sunday. Obviously, neither of those games really panned out, but yeah, still pretty happy with the score, pretty happy with the team setup. I've got a few headaches
Yeah.
with Mitch Moses now, and also Jai Arrow as well. So, yeah, I'd rather be having no trades to make this week, because I think that's actually a really big advantage. And a lot of teams are set up not to trade, but I'm probably going to have to make at least one and probably two.
Yeah, I guess we'll get stuck into talking about what we're doing going forward. Obviously, a lot of people have gone cheap in the front row forward. And we've been stung with Leniu obviously being out, and Arrow potentially for the season by the looks of it, as well as a number of other front row forward players misfiring completely. Jason Taumalolo, I think everybody's looking at you for that, and Todd Payton. So I guess that leads us to who is far and away the biggest trade in this week is Terrell May. What do you guys, I guess, think about what's happening there?
Yeah, I own Terrell May, so I think I got pretty lucky there. I took a punt with him, and it seems to have paid off. But if you're running, like if there's a lot of teams out there that have both their front row 1 and 2 out, with the likes of Arrow, Palacia, Leniu, so they're forced into that trade. So I think May's a good switch there. But if you're running like a Haas and Flegler, something like that, or a Ruben Cotter, Flegler along those lines, I probably would wait a week on May personally.
Yep, I completely agree with that.
Yeah, I think there's, as Rel mentioned, there's just such a big necessity at front row, and he's just so well priced. Like he's such a he's highly probable to average over the next month, 8 weeks, probably prior to Origin. He's priced at 40, 42. So he's going to beat that, and there's no other options anywhere, not even in his price range, but all the way up to, like, even if you classify Tarpany as an option at 650k, there's no one in between there. So it's just so obvious. I've tried to look around. I really like Flegler, but with the bye next week, and he's obviously going to play Origin as well. There's just no point. I think May's the obvious pick. It's frustrating, but I think there's no point trying to go pod away from the obvious when it's staring you in the face.
Yeah, with that there, I do want to talk about the sense that I don't think May's, I guess, as big of a slam dunk as everyone may think, but I think it's more so that you just need to shape your expectations with him. Look, let's face it, he's probably not going to average in the 60s, but I think if we can be somewhere between 50 to 55, I mean, that's definitely acceptable at front row forward at this time of the year, and I'd be happy with that compared to some of the scores people have been seeing from round 1.
Yeah, for sure. And the likelihood of him getting mid 50 minutes again is probably on the low side. Like realistically, I bought him with the hopes he'd get 40 to 45 minutes, and with that a 50 plus average. So I think his minutes will drop back to around that 40 to 45 mark on a more consistent basis. But with his PPM, he's still getting 50 plus scores.
Yeah. So I completely
just to add to that, sorry, Rob, just to add to that.
No, it's all right.
Just to add to that, whilst I agree, I think that's right. 40 to 45 will be his standard rotation that Robbo have planned. But what also Vegas showed is when there are problems, he's happy to leave him out there as that middle guy who can play the bigger minutes.
Oh, for sure. He could easily play 60.
We just see that all the time. Yeah. So you've got that up your sleeve as well, which probably bumps his, if he gets that once every 3 games, which is not unusual whatsoever, then that bumps his minutes up an extra 5 on average. And it's just his PPM is so good. He's got a huge engine. He doesn't look tired. Passes the eye test. He could be a pretty serious NRL player.
Yeah,
sure.
I think it's just something everyone just needs to keep in mind is that he's probably not going to be that guy that makes you 150k. I mean, hopefully he does. Look, everyone hopes he does, but he's more so that guy I think that'll get us through to Origin potentially midway through the year before you can upgrade him to say Tino or something eventually.
Yeah, and he's not going to do it. Like if he is going to make 150k, it's not going to be in 3 weeks like a Zach Leibert or something like that. Like it's going to be a relatively slower burn than those high upside guys.
Yeah. Now, I guess that sort of leads us a bit into the other, I guess, what we've seen from the Team List Tuesday from this week is that we seem to be getting the cheapies that we didn't get at the start of the year. So what do you guys think of the crop that's sort of, I guess, come through here for round 2? We've got Galvin. We've seen, obviously, Liam Henry's looking like he's keeping his minutes, and he's got a decent amount from the Panthers. Kai Pearce-Paul's got the start. Tommy Talau at the Manly, I should say. What do you guys reckon?
Do you want to take this one, Matt?
I'll just starting with a couple that played last week. So Liam Henry, I was really high on him pre-season. I got my hands on his reserve grade stats, and he was a beast in reserve grade, like huge PPM in big minutes.
He's playing 60 minutes a week doing that.
yeah, averaging over one PPM. So I knew if he got the minutes, if the minutes were there, that he'd be a good buy, and I really wanted him. I just couldn't afford him. I had to go cheap. I had to go with I ended up actually having to go with Fifita, and Miles Martin, just so that I could sort my team out elsewhere. And I'll probably trade both of them, at least one of them at one point over the next couple of weeks, but as placeholders. So I'm really keen to get Henry in. I think there's no point this week. You may as well wait a week, see what that rotation looks like at Penrith with Sorensen back in the second row, Garner to the bench. It looks favourable. So I couldn't put you off completely, but so I'm really, really keen on him. And then the other one, obviously Strange. So he's someone that a couple of people actually Tubes. He started with Strange as his 5'8" number 1 as sort of a pod strategy. He's obviously Galvin. He's got Galvin there to back up as well. So that's kind of worked out pretty well. I think he'll run that for a week or two. Just, Tigers at home this week. Should be fine. He's fine. I mean, I wouldn't really want to be playing him just yet in my 17 if I didn't have to. But as a 17th player, if the rest of your squad's filled, then I think that's looking good. Farmasili, I was really down on him. I'm glad he busted. And then probably the other one worth touching on from the week that's gone is Jamin Salmon. I think if you own him, I did everything to get him out of my team, and I did. Thankfully, I managed to flip it around. So it's cost me Galvin because I needed to get I had to have sort of 2 bottom price guys, and one of them was Galvin, but I've had to push Strange up to my second 5'8", just so I could get Salmon out and Bostock in. I just think Salmon's such a terrible NRL player. I just couldn't bear the thought of having him in my team. But if you do own him, I think that his start was okay. Give him another look this week, and if the minutes are there, even if the minutes are there, I still really can't. He could be a 0.5 PPM guy, 30 points in 60 minutes, but he could get some attack. So look, give him a week. You might have bigger problems next week, but I wouldn't be rushing any of those guys out just yet.
Yeah, look, obviously somebody like a Salmon, and that leads us to, I guess, we can talk about some other players and stuff as well, is that he did get moved around a bit. So, look, I tend to agree. I don't think he's going to have much of a very high PPM. He'll be that guy that he's used as the link for the Bulldogs, I believe. But, look, definitely give him at least another week so we can see, if you have him, to how he goes this week. Hopefully get in his, whole time playing in that 13 role.
Yeah, for sure. I'm a Salmon owner myself, and I didn't play him, thankfully, and I wasn't hugely discouraged from the first half. I don't rate him as a rugby league player all that highly, but in that first half of memory, he had about mid-20 points in the 40 minutes, and that was with about -6 in negatives. So I think he gave away 2 penalties and an error. So if he's doing that a bit less, he's punching out 30 points in the first 40 minutes. I'm pretty happy with that. So even if he plays 55, 60 minutes in that lock role. Even if he is playing that link role, we should hopefully get 40 plus weekly just in that base attack. Obviously, this could be hopeful. He could only be playing 45, 50 minutes a game, but I think I'm happy to run with him for the next few weeks with the thoughts that there's probably going to be other fires in my team between now and then over Salmon.
Yeah.
In terms of the guys who have come on the radar this week, obviously Galvin, I was very keen to start with him at second 5'8", just on the wing and a prayer, and that's paid off. So well done to people who brought him in. Obviously, Strange gives everyone that flexibility to be able to bring him in if he does look like he's going to be a really good cheapie. Tallis Duncan's probably the most interesting in the sense that it's come out today that he was injured during preseason. He's just played a reserve grade game last week, and he's usurped Jacob Host straight into the starting lineup, Host out of the squad. He looks very much in favour. I think given the fact that he's coming in this week, gives everyone that extra week to bring him in. So I wouldn't be rushing, but I would be shocked if the minutes aren't there for him. Safe Art's a bit more up in the air. Like he could be anywhere between 30 minutes and 60 minutes himself. So it's definitely worth a wait on him. I know you were pretty keen on him preseason, Realm.
Yeah, he's been in and out of my side, but just that unknowingness about him. I went with a few safer options. Like I went with an extra mid in the Tour F rather than one of those cheaper guys. So I did want to have a look at the likes of Pierce Paul, now Duncan, and Seafath before trading down to any of them. So I think I'm still happy with that choice. I don't think any of us really expected Duncan to be starting, even with Arrow being injured. I think we're all pretty surprised to see him there at the starting role and Host not even on the bench, so which is huge. But yeah, I'm still happy to wait a couple of weeks on all those guys just to see exactly what we're going to get from them. And not everyone's in the same boat, but with my 2RF, I've got Nanai, Lane, Piakura, Wong, Smithies, and Chan. So none of those guys are screaming a desperate trade out this week. Like none of them are injured at the moment. We just got a bit unlucky with Wong getting injured late in the game and Piakura getting that HIA. So I'm happy to give them all another week and then trade down whoever's the most disappointing or whoever needs to be flicked.
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of people are. We need to just be careful to, not. I know everyone gets that rage trade desire for somebody like a Piakura, but let's face it, like it's a HIA, it happens. It can happen at any point. The silver lining is that it did happen game one, which means that it's only going to be hopefully maybe one price drop and then he goes back up.
Yeah.
Definitely wait and see on these guys. We don't need to trade them out. We've got a lot of options coming round 3 and 4 now, seemingly. So wait and see.
Yeah. And Piakura is running at a good edge this weekend with Tallis Duncan and Ilias there. So it's a new combo on that right edge. And, he is a try scorer, Piakura. So I wouldn't be surprised if he goes over for one, to be honest.
Yeah. If he ends up pumping out something like an 80, he could barely lose anything. If he loses money, it's like he's at that price point where we just don't know yet at the moment. If he has one big game, it could be nothing.
Let's say his break even 79 after that 4 point.
It's a cliche as well, but that's going to drop out of his rolling average so quickly. That 4, it's 1 week. It's literally 1 week, and then if he has a good score this week, then it's all forgotten. You can't trade. None of those guys are trades. Like I've seen people discussing trading Sean Lane. I don't know what more you could have wanted to see there. 80 minutes. He was the Sprug player, the Sprug value pick all off season. I couldn't be happier to own Sean Lane. He'll get if he's continuing to get 80 minutes, then he'll have no problem getting straight to 600K in the next sort of 6 to 7 weeks.
So I was a bit like I was very, very happy to see him play the 80. I'm an owner of him. I've been on him all preseason. He's one of the guys that hasn't left my side. There's only been about 4 of them. But one thing I was discouraged about was that he didn't really look to be getting to his offload or even looking for that offload during the game. And that's a game where the Dogs have no middles. And Cartwright had 6 offloads, Hopgood had 3, Paulo had like 2 or 3. So the offloads were like everyone had the license to do it. Lane never even looked like doing it in any tackles. So that's one thing I was a bit discouraged about, and that's why he had that amazing 2022 season where he averaged 68 points. So if next week he isn't showing that again, he's just pumping out a 40 in base, he'd be the main guy. I'd look to go down to a Tallis Duncan or Pierce Paul if none of my other 2RFs are failing at that point.
Yeah, he did get a lot.
My take on that was just
from try assists from his offload.
Yeah, my take on that was just the fact that he had so many brutal injuries last year. I think he had 3 major injuries. I think that he just, this is what I'm hoping, that he just wanted to get that game under his belt, do everything he could
which is fair enough.
for what he needed to for the team. So, I agree. I wouldn't be, if we're not seeing it, I would still struggle to trade him out if he's getting 80. But like you said, there just aren't a lot of trade out options. options in the second row forward. And, next week could be a different story. But,
Yeah,
it's going to be hard to not get – if Kai Pearce-Paul gets a good role
that's the one I'm touching. If he's starting next week,
looked incredible.
Well, he outscored Lane in 40 minutes.
Yeah.
So
He just looks so super coach friendly.
Oh, for sure. He looks like Lane in 2022. Like he's over the top of tackles, getting the ball out to his backs. Like you can see that left edge of Ponga, Best, and Marzu feeding off that all season.
Yeah. All right. I guess that somewhat leads us in a bit of a segue into something similar. Now, we did have a lot of players that underperformed in round one. So Cleary, Hines, Ponga for some. What do you guys like? What are your opinions on these guns that misfired? What are you thinking, I guess, going forward?
Yeah, I've started with a lot of those big guys. I had Ponga, Hines, and Cleary. So yeah, I don't know. They weren't. I obviously wasn't happy with them. Ponga could have been a lot more. He had that try assist taken off him, so that score could have been a 70 to 80 score there. Hines, I think he still looked like he was struggling with that quad injury. So the fact he got through 80 minutes, I was pretty happy with. And that first game wasn't the one I bought him for. It was the round 2 to 4 fixtures against the Dogs, Tigers, and Raiders. So, I mean, I was pretty encouraged that he got the goal kicking in the second half. But yeah, I'm pretty sure by the end of the game, he was limping on it a little bit. So that was a little bit discouraged by that. But yeah, like I said, I bought him for this 2 to 4 period, not that first game in New Zealand, which was always going to be tough in my eyes.
Yeah.
Cleary, he had like 58 receptions of the ball. They just could not get through the Melbourne Storm, so I wouldn't expect to score like that again. It's been how many times have Penrith scored 0 points in a game in the last since they've been really relevant since 2020, 2019?
Actually heard this stat. It was at 2022 at some point is when they were last held scoreless.
Yeah, that's probably this is probably the second time it's happened in the last 5 years.
They've been held scoreless 3 times in the last 10 years, all by the Storm.
Yeah, so coming up against Para, who might have Moses on one leg, and then I think they're playing Brisbane Roosters, Manly, so that's not a great run for him, but Cleary can score points against anyone, so I wouldn't be looking to trade any of Hines, Cleary, unless they're getting a sub 50 score again this week and they're going to lose 200k. That's when I'd probably look for a pot option round 3.
Yeah, I guess so. To play devil's advocate just a little bit, because I think people will think this way. If somebody goes low, would you guys trade out one of these really big guns? I personally wouldn't, because I played Supercoach long enough to know. Like, look, Nico Hines, for example, has been the highest point scorer for the last 2 seasons. So we know he's got those games in him. And I personally am going to be putting the armband on him this week because he has a great average at Shark Park. So would you guys be looking to trade out? Or what would be enough to cause you to trade them out?
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't be trading them this week. No, no way known. You bought them because you know that they're guns and you wanted them in your team. You weighed up all the options. You have to give them 2 weeks. So see what happens this week. Next week is a bit of a different story. If they go low again and they're into league 200k over the next couple of weeks, then I would give some consideration to that. But it has to be in the next week's the biggest trade week of the season, just about, with the first lot of price changes. So, you have to assess, because with someone like Cleary and Hines, they both have a buy round 5 as well. So they're going to lose money. You're not going to have their points round 5 for Hines, round 6 for Cleary. I think it's very team dependent and how you set up. The problem with trading Hines and Cleary is there's no one to trade them to. All the options are really poor. I'm a Moses owner, so I went Hines and Moses. Hines was really disappointing in terms of him being injured, and I'm hoping that he's better this week. It was good to see him kicking. I think he copped a whack before that first try, which meant Trindle took the kick. But he was certainly hampered. That's his lowest Supercoach score maybe ever, or at least certainly
since his Melbourne days, I reckon. Yeah,
since he was off the bench. Whilst disappointing, he'll be my vice captain this week. I'm not planning on trading him out maybe all season, I would have thought. So, I don't own Cleary, but that's because I thought tough run early and the buy round 6 that I could antipod him. And I was so happy to see him go low. I'm so devastated that Moses couldn't match him.
He matched him in the first 13 minutes, and then after
Yeah.
that,
Yeah. So, I mean, Moses is sort of part of this conversation, I think. I think he is a candidate for a rage trade. I think I'm really, really concerned about what his next month looks like if his performance is impacted by this groin. I would suggest he's unlikely to goal kick. He said he's playing, but if they're playing Penrith this week, he could easily drop a 20 or 25 and not be impacted by his groin, but we won't know. And then he's in to drop 100K next week. And where do I go with that? I'd rather just cut my losses with this information now. I'll probably go to Sam Walker. I was really impressed with him. I thought his like, it's been talked about a bit, but his strength looked really good. The Roosters have got a hard run, but I also think the Roosters are probably a top 3 or 4 side this year, and he can perform well. So yeah, I think if you are getting angry about those guys going low, I think you just have to give it a week.
So the one option that I like for Moses owners is a bit. I think the obvious one would be SJ, just because of how well he scored, even though his team really didn't score that many points. So he is like another 100 or so K more than Moses. But the other option I quite like that's a bit more pottish is Ben Hunt. Like all that play is going through him. That right-hand side with Lomax and Sewer and Bird outside him looks really good. He was also going over to the left-hand side and trying to feed the ball to Sully and Reva. So I could see that happening a bit more. And he's got a good run with the Dolphins. Cowboys like to give up points, Manly, Newcastle, and Tigers. So I can definitely see him being a pot option, getting maybe like a 65, 70 plus average over the next month or so. And then I know he could be that guy to go to Cleary in round 7. That's still going to be probably 100K, 200K gap at the very most, or sorry, at the very least. But I can see it as a pot option's probably likely to work out.
Yeah. Just quickly, because you've mentioned his name, I really liked the look of Sully, like for the Dragons. I think he's in for a really big year. I think he's one that, could be a little interesting sneaky pod if anybody wants something like that in CT Dub.
Yeah, he's the reason that I liked Flano in 5'8". That's why I was happy to go to cheaper option, because all Flano needs to do is pass him the ball or Rava the ball, and they'll possibly score every second run. So yeah, that's why I was pretty confident playing Flano there last weekend.
Yeah, so I guess that also then we talked about halfbacks there, but I know some people could potentially look at something like trading a fullback or something like that. We've talked people will be playing the fullback roulette this year. Do you do it as early as round 2 if you need to free up cash, or do you stick strong?
I'll be honest, I was super tempted by it, and it's purely because I had no one else to trade. So I was like, I could look at like a Ponga, because Ponga doesn't have the greatest run. Like his next few games, he's got the Cowboys, which isn't an awful game, but then he's got Melbourne, Warriors. So that run's not ideal. So if I'm playing fullback roulette, I don't mind the look of Walsh for a 1-week rental against South, who just gave up 36 points in a narrow field, and the dry tracker on Thursday night at Suncorp. So I wouldn't mind that, but then I think he plays Penrith the week after, so it'd only be a 1-week play. Drinky was another one I'm looking at. Didn't start with him. I started Ponga Turbo, but Drinky's got the Dolphins and not the Dolphins. He's got the Knights, who just gave up 28 points to the Raiders, who are allergic to good attack. And then he's got the Dragons the week after. So yeah, that's a play I've definitely tossed up, but it's just whether or not it's worth the trade.
Yeah, I quite like Teddy now that Dom Young's back in the Roosters team. Like, we know for a long time that they did like that right wing. So, I mean, that's another option if, like, freeing up cash. Look, I'm personally going to stick strong because I've got the same. I've got Ponga and Turbo. But if Ponga drops, say, a 60 this week, he's somebody I will strongly consider moving because just to free up that cash. But I think it's, for me, I'm happy to hold. Like, let's face it, the Cowboys are not the strongest defensive side, so he might come out and still blast 100. We don't know. Look, all of the fullbacks are capable of this. I think, it's tough, but I think we need to stick strong as much as we can with our trades.
So I'm a Drinky and Turbo owner, and obviously Drinky had that try disallowed right on full time because forgot how to put the ball down. So that cost him 22 points. But I was really like, I'm still like, it didn't really pan out for him. But yeah, like you said, Realm, he's got a great run now. He's like generally like a lot of the play goes through him. I think they just had a very specific plan as to how they were going to try and cut the Dolphins open, and they executed it really well. If I was a Ponga owner, I would be very reluctant to sell. Like he still looked great. As you said, he could have had a much bigger score if I can't remember who it was, Frizzell or whoever got in the way and for the obstruction. But from sort of they got a toughish run now for 3 weeks. They got Cows, Storm, then Warriors away. So that's definitely tough. But then they go from between round 5 and round 11, which is then before they have a bye in Origin. You know, they've got in that run they've got Dragons, Bulldogs, Dolphins, Tigers, Titans, and then like Bulldogs in 13. But like I will be looking potentially to go to Ponga for that run from round 5 onwards. If Turbo or Drinky is starting to like, if they're not looking like they're going to cut it. And by then as well, if he can drop another low score or two, you know, you could be looking at picking him up for sort of 700K. So I think it all just ties in with your whatever your strategy is. Like there is a genuine, like last year when the buys first came in, I know some people who tried to do a bit of a buy flip strategy where they're flipping guns around buys. It didn't really work out, I don't think, last year because you needed
so many trades.
you just burned through the trades, and then we saw that they were so valuable towards the back end. So I'm not a huge proponent for gun flipping like that. There are circumstances, obviously, if they're going to lose a lot of cash in a season that looks like maybe it is a bit hard to generate some cash, that's an option for you, that you can sell them down high, sell high, and then, you know, pick up other guns who are more appropriately priced, just so you're not leaking cash. Because, like, let's face it, almost everyone is expendable at some point. And like Ponga is going to miss round 12 and round 13. Like, he's probably going to be a trade out at that point. Like, it's hard to carry someone like that through 2 rounds and not playing. So, yeah, you are like you have to ride the highs and lows a bit.
Is anyone looking at Trell?
I'd love to have Trell.
He looked really good.
Yeah, the thing is, like, he doesn't. I feel like he rarely plays bad sides. Like, he's always only available for the tough games. It always feels like to me, except for last year when he played the Dogs, where he got a hat trick or something ridiculous like that. But even then, every time I've ever owned Trell for the last 3 years, I feel like I've never been disappointed by him. Like, he's got that really high floor because of the goal kicking, but that run he's got is just so bad. He's got Broncos away this week, then the Roosters, who he traditionally don't think he plays that well against. The Bulldogs is that good game, but then he's got New Zealand and Cronulla. So he's one I've definitely looked at as well. But I think if I'm going fullback roulette, I would rather the 2-week play of Vadrinki, who does have like those easier games, and then going on to someone like a Walsh, Trell, something like that. But I honestly can't tell if I'm just bored of not looking at trades this week because I don't have anything to trade out, or if it's actually a good play, in all honesty.
Yeah, that's something that it's been on my mind since preseason, is looking at the draws, like you hinted at it there, Matt, and Realm, the draws that are off the teams. Like, quite a lot of teams have got this sort of really tough run, say first 4 or 5, and then it swings really well. So, like, we know that after the Panthers bye, like, they've got a really good run. So everyone will want Cleary by then if you don't have him. So I guess I put this to you guys. Like, how far out would you plan certain trades? Like, for me, for example, I'm probably going to look at trying to grab Reece Walsh on the Broncos when their draw flips. I think it's round 5.
Round 5 or 6, I think their draw looks really good.
Yeah, exactly. So are you guys going to be planning for that this season, or probably still try to play it a bit more week to week?
I don't like to look at it as like I want this player, but I think I like to look at it more like I want someone from this team. So even if it's a pod center wing option, someone from the spine, rather than saying I want Walsh, because then if I don't have someone to trade out, then that kind of stuffs your plans up. If you look at it as like the team as a whole, like knowing this team's going a good run, who's going to benefit from it, and who in my team is going to be a trade out at that point. That way you do have the multiple options there. So I think rather than looking at it as the one person as the target, look at it as the whole team.
Yeah, I do like to plan trades, but not until maybe a month before Origin. I like to keep it a bit more loose and have some flexibility early in the year, just because you just don't know what's going to pop up, and you kind of just have to be a bit more opportunistic. I'm kind of happy enough, like you said. I do obviously want Cleary post round 6. That's a big target for me, and I want to try and get it as cheap as. I'd like to do it in one trade if I could, ideally. So whether that's Hunt or Walker, those guys, if Cleary starts losing some cash, feasibly you could go a straight swap. That's obviously optimistic, but that will be the plan to hopefully try and do that. I think it is really important, as you said, Realm, to plan the teams you need to target, particularly in buys and around there, because it comes up on you really quick and you run into problems, I think, if you don't know which teams you need to target and which players you need to get out of your team, and they're going to be problematic through that draw period, through that buy period. Because there are teams in there that some of them have like two buys in a month. They come up really quick. Like, I think Cowboys don't have a buy until round 14, I think, or maybe even 15. So like, I was kind of happy to get more Cowboys in. I ended up not doing it, but I know my brother, he went with Nanai, Lukey, Drinky, and Val Holmes. So he's really overloaded with cows, and that's obviously looking like a bit of a masterstroke right now. But I think I like teams. I like the concept of expected minutes. So like if I know that there's going to be a team who don't have a bye now for 9 or 10 weeks, I'd really as a bit of a tiebreaker, or even add more weight than a tiebreaker, I'll go that player from that team over a player from another team, because like that's a problem I'm going to have to solve when they don't play. That's probably the biggest thing why I wouldn't go to Trell, given they've got bye in round 7, I think it is, and then obviously he doesn't play round 13 because he's Origin. Where for someone like Drinky, I don't actually have to worry about that, because he's just, as long as he doesn't kick for New South Wales, I've got him there every week until round 14. So that's really important. Like that's, they're premium guys, and I'm getting an extra 7-8% out of them because of the extra game they're going to play.
Yeah. How early are you looking at that though? Were you looking at in pre-season, or are you looking at that like a month out? Because I didn't really look at those buys unless they're in the first 3 or 4 rounds. I wasn't deterred by anyone except for those early buys. Like I chose Robson over Appy for that reason. Just that round 1 buy. I just wanted to go like a solid hooker to play in round 1 rather than having to rely on a Lussick or Levi, even though it would have paid off in hindsight. But at the time, I just wanted to secure some good points in there and then weigh my options up, after those early buys from Harry Grant and Appy and things like that.
Yeah, I did look at it pre-season, but that's not the reason I picked Drinkwater. But it was. I mean, if you look to round 13, he plays 2 more games than Trell, 2 more games than Ponga. So like, I did factor it in, but I just really like the Drinky pick alongside as a bit of an antipod to Ponga. Just given I thought that Ponga was, Knights won their last, and it sounds like, Captain Hindsight here, but Knights won their last 9 games in a row last year, and in every single one of those games they scored 26 points or more. That's completely unsustainable for a new season, and it's not like the Knights are the Panthers or Broncos in terms of how well they're rated this year. They're a middle of the pack NRL team, and so I thought if I can just get some luck and get Ponga beat, now I've got it week 1, doesn't mean it's going to keep happening. It's just why I'm so disappointed that it started without Cleary and Ponga. They both failed and I couldn't cash in. Like it's a bit devastating, to be honest.
Yeah, that's another reason that I'm a bit off Ponga, not just the draw that's coming up, but like I said before with Hines, I'm not just over that round 1 game because I didn't pick him for that round 1 game. I picked him for this 2 to 4 period because that's where he's going to be my VC or C every single week. I picked Ponga in round 1 because of that matchup against the Raiders. Like he has his history, his last 5 games, he's averaged like 110 against them with a low score of 86. So I thought for sure I've locked in a good round 1 captain. And then, it doesn't matter if he scores a bit lower those next few weeks in those harder games because he's got that round 1 score. So he's not going to lose that, like really any money or not much at all. Now that he's had a crap score in round 1, and which was the easy matchup, he's now got the Cowboys this week. I'm not sure if that's going to be difficult or not, to be completely honest, but the 2 after that are not going to be easy against Melbourne and the Warriors. So that's why I'm possibly looking at moving him on, whether it's this week or next week. I'm not too sure. But yeah, he out of the guys like Ponga, Nico Cleary, he's probably going to be the first to go.
Interesting.
Yeah. Now, we've talked about trades here. So I guess I want to get your guys' opinion on what is your overall strategy regarding trades at this point in the season? Are you thinking you'll go hard early on? Are you going to use boosts? What are you guys thinking for yourselves, I guess, over the next, say, 5 to 6 weeks?
Yeah, Matt, do you want to have a crack at that one first?
Yeah, I'll go first. I'll start with boosts. I'm a big advocate for getting full value out of your boosts. I think they have more inherent value the longer that you actually get to see the benefit of them. So I've always run out of boosts by about around 13 or 14, I think, at the the latest. That's not to say I run out of trades. I just think that if I can spend my boost setting my team up to build value, that I'll have more flexibility later. I will probably do that again, to be honest. I don't want to burn all my trades. I'm really jealous. I've got a lot of friends, teams who don't need a trade this week, and I think it's a great week to save a trade, get more information. Like, there's so much happens in a round of NRL. Like, look, we're sitting here this week, and there's people who just fallen off a cliff, like Tamalolo, Palasia. There's going to be more of those guys next week. Like, we could be sitting here talking about Sean Lane dropping a 28 if he doesn't get that offload back out. And he's got 60 minutes. What do you do with him then? So there's just, the information is just so critical. So I want to set my team up. So I'm happy to trade hard early and use boosts.
Yeah.
If I had to guess, I'd say I'll definitely use a boost next week and a boost in round 4, just given the amount of cheapies options that have come on the scene. The only caveat to that is if I've got enough players that I want to trade out to be able to fit them in.
That's the thing I'm on as well. I feel like I don't have that many trade out options as of yet. Like, there's some that are on the block who are watching this week, but none that are. I'm like, if I had Satili Tupanua, I'd probably look at him out. But I didn't have the likes of Arrow, Palasia, Lolo, guys like that. But if I did, then I feel like I'd be forced into trades this week for sure.
Yeah, I think it's kind of tied to the rage trade. I think the only real candidates for rage trading are Tamalolo, Palasia, Moses, and then maybe Beau Fermor. Like, he was fairly underwhelming.
I think that's tough without foreign though. Like, and that run from round 3 to 6 for them is incredible. Like, they've got, let me just pull up here. The Titans, they come back to the Bulldogs, Dolphins, Cowboys, Canberra.
Yeah,
so there's definitely points.
He'll go to the right. He'll go to the right. Once Fafita's back, you would have to think. Who knows what Desi will do there? But yeah, it's in terms of like all those other second row mid ranges, like I would definitely trade if I owned Piakura and Fermor, I'd be trading out Fermor before Piakura.
Yeah, I agree with that. So that's one of the reasons why I personally didn't go Fermor in the preseason, is because I knew of the round 2 bye. So I figured he would be that guy that I guess kind of bank as, okay, I need to get somebody out to trade down to, or move sideways because they haven't scored well. Like, so, let's say, if Elaine had scored 28 and then Fermor looked good, he would be that guy I would trade to. So I avoided him in preseason for that reason.
Yeah, it was about the same boat, I reckon. Same mindset there.
I thought he was a good option, but sorry. I thought he was a good option, but I couldn't fit him in like with everyone else.
Yeah. I definitely prefer the likes of Wong and Lane and Piakura over him, but I still think Fermor's a good option. But if it was down to like Fermor and Piakura and you had to trade one out, even though necessarily probably both aren't necessary to trade out, Fermor would be the one to go for me as well. So I agree there. But in regards to trades early, round 1, I always basically look at it as if my round 1 goal is just to have no fires in my side, which 99 times out of 100 is you're always going to have fires in there. I just got super lucky last week, so I'm probably sitting on no trades. But from there, I agree with what Matt said in regards to focusing on value the first few rounds and using boosts early. Like, I'd be happy to use 2 boosts over the first 5 rounds to make sure I maximize my value there. And then I look to use my boosts around for the big buys around 13, 16, 19. Last few years I've done that and it's really helped me out. So I'll probably look at doing that again.
I think I'm going to work backwards this year. What I'd love to be able to do, not that I think it will happen, but I'd love to be able to keep a boost for after Origin, or even possibly for these last couple of rounds if possible. Because if we do get mass restings, then we've seen like over the last few years just how important it is to have trades up the sleeve come end of season. We saw it with obviously with Cooler, as was mentioned. Look, that you can get move hundreds of places at the end of the year. So I would love to be able to set just pop one in the sleeve up from there, and then working backwards. I found, especially with around only needing 13 for the Origin period, it probably wasn't quite as drastically needed for them as I guess we potentially thought. So I'd be almost happy to go, say, burn 3 fairly quickly, and then maybe sort of have one for the end of season and then one up the sleeve for when I need it.
One of my favorite things about Supercoach is there are so many different ways to go about that strategically, like boost. But at the end of season, everyone remembers last season when everyone rested. And don't get me wrong, I think that is likely to happen again. But because everyone's doing that, it's also, it's a completely viable strategy to burn through trades. Not so much now, but maybe you run out of trades with 2 or 3 rounds left. You've gotten more value for those trades. Your team, if you're up there, go hard to try and get ahead, and then try and hold on, and hopefully you can hang on by the skin of your nails. That's always something that I've actually advocated for. Now, last year I just got lucky that didn't happen to me, but this year could be the same. You could get to a point. The big thing last year was that every team, the top 8 was basically set. No one could really move within. I think there was one game that could maybe influence it. This year, there could be 6 games that could influence positions in the top 8. So you just don't know. But the Supercoach crowd is so driven by what's happened in the last week that it's actually can be a really good strategy just to go against what everyone's doing, because at the end of the day, your score and strategy is only relative to everyone else in the game. So if you can actually make a call that might be 50-50, but everyone else is doing the other thing, you might want to do it. You're every sinew in your being goes, I know I want to do that, but I can actually get a lot of value by doing this other thing. That's I love that about Supercoach, and I love trying to think about it that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. We've got a couple of questions in the chat here, so we'll address them. The first one is Luca. He's got Tapane and Cotter. Would you trade either of them for May?
That's a no from me. I feel like May's only in the set, someone to trade in if you have an Arrow, Lenu, Palacia type in your front row. If you've got Cotter and Tapane, keep them for a week. If Cotter gets another sub 50, then and May gets 50 plus, then I'd probably look to make that trade next week and then use that 120K on the rest of your squad. Yeah,
it's a no from me as well. I like Cotter's minutes weren't really there, but that rotation was obviously a bit funky. Sam McIntyre, there was no talk about him preseason. I'm going, I think he might be all right. I think you obviously couldn't really start with him because of the uncertainty, but 46 minutes for him every week, is that going to maintain? Cotter might be, Cotter might be just easing into it a bit as well, but you may as well have another look. Terrell May his price isn't going anywhere, and 2, if you don't own him and don't need to bring him in, you get another look at his minutes and how that rotation is going to shake out. This will be the most indicative rotation week that you're going to get from the Roosters. So getting that information is crucial.
I just had another point on that Cowboys game in regards to plays bases being down. There was 10 tries in that game. So there would have been 10 to 15 minutes where they're standing around waiting for goal kicks, which you don't see often in a game. So that base is always going to be down in those super high scoring games. So unless a prop or forward's getting attacking stats, they're not going to score well in those games.
Yep, that's a very good point. We've got Harold here saying that he doesn't mind SJ as a short-term play for those looking for a halfback.
Yeah, I mentioned that before. If I was a Moses owner and I had the cash, SJ is probably the main target I'd look at. If not, I do like the pod player Ben Hunt.
Yeah, then we've got Kyle basically saying, is Lolo a hold? Obviously, I would say no. He looks done.
Yeah, no.
I can see
Sorry, you go.
Yeah,
I think we're going to have opposite
you
views.
go, Matt, because I'm going to play devil advocate here. Yeah, you go first. I'll play devil advocate after.
Yeah, I look. I would be. I think there's a very good case to rage trade Tamalolo out. I'm convinced he's carrying something maybe chronic that he just can't get over. I think he would have played more minutes. I think he's right. I think everyone's had a good laugh at him saying, "Oh, we were doing it pretty easy, so the coach didn't need to put me back out there." Like after a 21-minute stint, but I do think there's probably an element of truth in that. But that's because of a reason, and that's probably because he's got some underlying issue that he's just not the same, nowhere near the same guy. Like that's obvious to everyone. But I just with Terrell May there at the same price is an easy sideways move, especially because a lot of people have him in front row 1 or 2. So I don't see how you can run him out. That'd be my my position if I owned him.
Yes, I'm going to play devil advocate, and I do believe that he was put on ice because there's that short day turnaround, and Peyton's probably taking that conservative approach to him this year and just saving him for the finals. Assuming they make it. So, yeah, he probably does go out for another 20 minutes, and this week he is going up against the Knights, who last week at one point had Crossland, Cogger, Gamble, Hastings all on the field at the same time. So it's a huge opportunity for middles to rack up points. So I guess if you do have other fires in the side, I would say that Lolo, I don't think this is the worst week to hold him. Obviously, Terrell May is going to be the better Supercoach prospect long term, but purely for round 2, I do see the case of holding Lolo just for this week, especially if you've got Lolo and Palacia. I'm pretty sure all of the playbook crew they all got Palacia and Lolo. In that case, Palacia is the first to go. So, yeah, I would say in scenarios like that, I wouldn't mind holding Lolo this week if I owned. Especially if you've got other fires in the side. Like, Lolo is playing, and they only played 19 minutes. I assumed he would play 40-plus if they needed him out there.
Who would you trade Palacia to if you didn't have any money?
I would have gone into that week assuming, like after the Vegas games, not having May, whoever your front row, if you're going Lolo Palacia, you have enough in the bank to go up to May.
Yeah, you'd want to, because there's not much else to go.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you surely go into that with 120K in the bank to go up to May. Like, that's what I'd heard the most of with teams that ran Palacia. Like, they basically got him and held 100K in the bank and just locked in that trade to May.
Yeah. So just quickly on Lolo, it's the thing for me that I guess is very interesting. It's not so much Supercoach, it's the NRL side of things, is considering the other middles that also didn't play big minutes at the Cows, he was the lowest. So, like, the other prop was Jesse McLean, who's, I believe he's in his, 33 or something like that. He's not a young player. He still played 30 minutes. So, in that sense, I personally think, Tamalolo for me is the one that has to go, because not so much that I don't think he'll eventually be playing 40 minutes regularly, but he's that guy that is probably going to be the first one to get a rest. Peyton just doesn't like him. He ran a lot of dummy runs against the Dolphins. So for me, I think while I still think he could probably average 40 to 45, across the season, I just think there's too many other things for a position that you just need to be safe. Like, you don't want to be spending further trades. So it's, for me, that's why I think Lolo needs to go.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, I think they just would have looked at it as he plays the first 20, plays the last 20, maybe like the odd minute or so changes there. But at that point, when he was due to come back on in the second half, they would have already been up by 30 or so points. So there's just no need to. They're paying him $1 million a year, whereas Jordan McLean, he'd be on cheap money. He's not as essential to the squad, nowhere near as essential to the squad as a healthy Lolo would be. So, I think I'd rather risk McLean for 33 minutes over Lolo in a game they're up by 30.
Yeah, and I guess there was also funky rotations. We saw it with Lukey, where it's like he came on for sort of like weird stints and things like that. So, there probably is a little bit to shake out there at the Cows with the rotations.
Yeah. Lukey got a HIA, so that's the only reason he went off.
And then he came back on in the middle at the
He
end
played
of
for
the last
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like after that HIA, I think he was on for 10 minutes and then went back off or something weird, something like that. So it's, but yeah. All right. I guess then the other thing, Kyle's asked another question is selling Ponga. So we did cover that. Look, I personally think hold for 1 week because we don't quite know what the defense of the Cows is like. And if he comes out, look, if he had scored, 75, 80, then we wouldn't be having this discussion.
Yeah, that's like just reiterates the point I made before that I did buy him for that round one fixture, assuming he was going to go like 80 plus, hopefully 100 plus, and now that it doesn't, I do see the case for selling him, but it's just I'm not 100% like certain on who I'd want to go to. So that's the one thing that's holding me back. Plus, it is very sideways, so yeah, I just need to really see if I'm just bored of not looking at trades or if I actually think it's a good idea.
I think that's one actually like a really key point that I guess I'd like to focus on a bit more is only do it if you've got a target. And I guess this is not just a problem. This is, I guess, across the board is trade when you have to make a trade, not so much when you want. Like I'll put it this way. If say you've decided, okay, I want to go cheaper at fullback, say down to a Tedesco, and I'm going to use that money to go from, say, an RTS to Val Holmes because you really liked the look of Val, I can totally get behind that because you've got a target and you're doing it for a reason. But if you're just going because you kind of scored low, but you don't have a firm target in mind, I don't like it.
If you have a target but no trade out options, are you getting rid of someone that even though you'd still like RTS? While he only scored 47, that was his flaw. Like he was getting smothered every time he had the ball, couldn't really bust tackles, get that offload off like he could in the trials, but that is an absolute flaw. So I wouldn't see him as a trade out personally. Like I'm not Nona, but I'm still looking at him as around 3-4 target potentially, depending on how he goes next couple of weeks. So
sorry, just to clarify, I didn't mean RTS as a trade out. I'm just saying it's the price points is where I was looking at. Is that because it's that's K movement mark
for sure. But I just mean like if you do have those targets in mind, like you do, like you're stuck on a Latrell or a Lomax. Would you give up guys that aren't necessarily trade outs for the targets that you have your heart set on?
Yeah.
When trades first opened this week, my first thing I did was trade Moses to Walker and trade RTS to Lomax.
Right.
Like as a this feels nice scenario. Since then I've come to my senses and they're not. I think RTS is going to be a fine purchase for me, and I think Lomax is going to be good, but you want to make sure he stays motivated and he's busting out 70 in base plus power every week.
Yeah.
And I can't be convinced of that at this point in time. In saying that, I think every season there are these guys who you need to identify and jump on quickly that are going to go on runs.
Yeah.
Last year it was obviously a Sarko, and I thought Carraz as well. Like once Carraz got that 140 against the Storm, I'm like, this guy's base is monstrous. If he's finishing tries, like he could be 800K in no time. And I bought him in and was really happy, but then he got injured. And so it just never really panned out. Lomax could be that guy this year playing on, like right wing was a great place to be already at the Dragons.
Yeah, Ravel got 20 tries there last year and he's bang average. He can barely catch a ball sometimes.
Exactly. And if Zach's going looking for the ball, which McKaylee never did, he could be that guy this year. And I think there's a good chance he is. I would love to own him. I wish I started with him in hindsight, but I just can't bring myself to go Roger up to him, especially now that Arrow's out. This is not even an option because I'd have to boost. But yeah, that's I think you've got to go. If you think the Lomax is that guy, I wouldn't be opposed to doing Roger to Lomax, but I still think you're more the more conservative, safer option is just to hold Roger and hopefully, Roger could easily match or outscore Lomax. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. Well, so they've probably got a similar flaw. It's just the upside is the question. I don't know if Roger would have the same upside in center, but if he ever lands that fullback role, it's going to be there for sure. But yeah, that's why my last minute decision came down to Lomax, Nanai, and Robson versus Grant, Lukey, and RTS, and then I ended up just going the Lukey, RTS, and Grant. They were all owned by like an average of 30% of teams, something ridiculous like that. So I went with that pot option where they're owned like by an average of about 7%. So I got lucky there for sure.
All right, so we've already gone for an hour, guys. So we'll start to wrap it up. Captains and vice captains, who are you guys looking at for the week?
Yeah,
Matty,
so
you wanna
I've
take
got.
that?
Yeah, I'm almost certainly be going Nico VC home to the Dogs Friday night. Pretty standard, straightforward. Captain, I'll be Turbo or Drinky. Probably leaning Drinky at this stage with that game against the Knights. First home game of the year. Yeah, Turbo just a bit of a tougher fixture, but I think Turbo is a better super. I still think, all things being equal, I would captain Turbo, but just with that fixture, might just tip it in Drinky's favour.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. With regards to Nico VC, that's an easy option. And I did consider throwing the captain on him, but I would like 2 cracks at the whip. I'm not opposed to VC looping this early, just considering the low scores this like last week. And there's no real standout captaincy option this week besides Nico, so I'm not opposed to VCing if needs, like VC looping. In regards to captain, Turbo is the main option for me, but I do have a couple of pod options. Ponga or Drinky. Like if I do end up pulling the trigger on Ponga to Drinky, one of those guys could be the captain for me for sure against each other. Like Ponga running at that Nanai Chad edge could be huge with Pierce Paul there, and likewise Drinky. The Knights look terrible with all those halves in the middle, so Drinky could have a field day against them. The other one I have considered, and I can't tell if this is me chasing points from last week, but Lomax on the right wing against Bostock. Bostock should have conceded 2 tries last week with Felt dropping the ball over the line. But that right edge with Ben Hunt there feeding him, I think there's a real chance that the Dragons do score points similar to last week, and Lomax could go over for 1 or 2. So that's another real pod option I'm looking at. But I think that'll depend on how the rest of my team goes leading up to it, whether I need some upside or not.
Yeah. Like even if he doesn't necessarily score the tries, he'll be kicking the goals. So that'll be some points there as well. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm probably just going to throw the C straight on Hines. I'm always really big on him at home. And for some reason, I just love putting a captain in that 6 p.m. like Friday game. I just love it, like a nice early captain. So at the moment, I think I'll probably go Hines and then throw the VC on probably like a Piakura because it's just somebody in that first game.
Yeah. The only thing with the straight C on Nico is he is still injured. Like, and I'm injured. Captain and injuries are just the worst mix you can get. Especially that early in the round. That would. I don't think. I think I would avoid that if for my team. But like he's definitely the best captaincy option. He's got the highest expected points this week. There's no doubt about that.
I would be looking at Hines as straight captain if I had like a Latrell or Walsh as my VC. But without those guys, without a clear VC option, I'd rather the 2 cracks at the whip after suffering those poor captaincy options last week.
Yeah, if I don't go the straight C, it'll be Tommy Turbo, like you guys have sort of mentioned as well.
Yeah.
So, all right, I think we'll call it there. So thank you so much for joining me tonight, guys. Obviously, everyone, if you're not part of the SC Hub, jump in. There's always great discussion in the Discord. I cannot recommend it highly enough. Like and subscribe for all the channels. We'll have Scoop on Sunday where he'll go through the games and discuss what's happened. And I'm sure there'll be a lot that's happened this week and he'll have a lot to discuss. Once again, thank you so much for joining me, guys. Thanks everyone for listening, and I hope you have a good night.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, Rob. Thank you.